Conveyor Drive System, Maintenance and Troubleshooting. Here you're looking at the normal operation of the conveyor drive system. Here, a rack is blocked, which is engaging the clutch spring and the rubbing blocks. This is where damage actually starts occurring. Here's a comparison of rubbing blocks. Good blocks versus one that's been bad and worn. To gain access into the drive system, first we start by removing the slip clutch springs. We remove the bottom spring first and then the top spring. You can remove it using a spring puller as shown or with a screwdriver. Once we remove the clutch springs, we move up the rocker arm and remove the 3/4 inch bolt and locking nut. This bolt holds the rocker arm and the conveyor bar together. When you're removing this bolt, there will be two spacers. One is located on each side of the conveyor bar. This helps keep the rocker arm and the conveyor bar centered when it's operating. Once the bolt is removed, the rocker arm can now be lowered. Lowering the rocker arm allows you access to the rubbing blocks, allows you to inspect them for damage, and also gains access to the cam bearing and the cam block. If we need to replace or work on a cam bearing, it's removed by using a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. This cam bearing should be periodically lubricated with a marine wheel bearing grease. It's not primarily for the bearing itself, but it does help protect from chlorine splashing down on it. If we need to work on the cam block, first we have to remove the bolts and the locking mechanism. We do that by bending back the ears on the lock. Then we can loosen up the bolts. These are 9/16 inch bolts. Once your bolts are loosened, you can remove the locking mechanism. Be sure not to lose it. Remove the bolts allows you access to the cam block. The cam block's reversible. The primary reason for this is if the cam bearing thread gets messed up, which can get seized from chlorine, it can be flipped over to use the opposite side. To reinstall it, line up your cam block, put your bolts back in it, make sure you replace your bolt locks. Go ahead and tighten down your bolts, and again, should only be hand snug with a maximum of about 15 pounds of torque. Once you have those snug down, go ahead and bend down the ears of your lock. Again, helps keep the bolts from coming loose. Go ahead and reinstall your cam bearing. Again, it should be snug. Now we're ready to start reassembling. Go ahead and lift up your rocker arm. Here we use our 3/4 inch bolt. Make sure that you have your spacers, again, one on each side of the conveyor bar. Conveyor bar will move freely now, so you're easily to line up your conveyor bar and your rocker arm in the holes. Once you get your spacers and your bolt in place, go ahead and put it on your nut and secure it down. It should be snug and not over tight. Remember using a locking nut. Conveyor bar should now move freely. Once we put the conveyor arm back in place, we go ahead and reassemble our springs. Start with the top clutch spring first. This will make it easier to put on the bottom spring. If you start with a bottom spring, the clutch bar has a tendency to try to pull out on you, and you'll be fighting it. Put your top spring on first, and then replace your bottom spring. Remember, the springs are only getting damaged because of racks being blocked or not able to move out of the machine. This puts your conveyor system back in full operation. Learn more about the conveyor drive system by talking to your managers, regional manager, or vice president, or contact the training center for more information.